When Americans look ahead to the year 2050, the prevailing emotion isn't hope or ambition, it is a profound, looming anxiety. Survey data from the Pew Research Center maps the exact contours of this dread. A clear majority of the public braces for a significantly weaker economy, alongside predictions that the national debt will skyrocket out of control. The pessimism extends well beyond domestic finances. Americans anticipate an expanding lower class, absorbing what remains of the middle class. They expect China to supplant the United States as the world's main superpower, and 6 in 10 believe a terrorist attack as bad or worse than 9/11 is probable. These specific anxieties reveal how the public models risk. They imagine the future breaking down exactly the way the past did, through sudden geopolitical shocks and familiar cycles of economic recession. But long-term predictive models, like those commissioned by the US 2050 Project, tell a different story. By tracking intersecting demographic, technological, and environmental trajectories, these models point toward a massive, unavoidable wave of structural change. The disconnect is sharp. The American public is scanning the horizon for an explosive, sudden catastrophe. The math shows that the real threat is a quiet, steady transformation of the baseline systems that run the country. The Census Bureau projects a defining turning point in 2030. By that date, every baby boomer will cross the age of 65. In 2034, the nation hits a historic milestone. Older adults will officially outnumber children under 18. A top-heavy population structure alters the basic arithmetic of the country. A shrinking ratio of working-age adults to retirees places severe, immediate pressure on the national debt and tests the limits of social safety programs designed for a younger population. Parallel to this aging curve, birth rates are falling while the total number of deaths rises. Consequently, net international immigration is projected to permanently overtake natural birth increase as the primary driver of domestic population growth. These compounding shifts will rewrite the American electorate. By mid-century, the racial and ethnic composition of every state will evolve, forcing a recalibration of political strategy and public policy. The most significant economic vulnerability in the coming decades is not a mysterious recession. It is an inverted eight pyramid collapsing the arithmetic that sustains modern welfare systems. While the public worries about a widening gap between rich and poor, long-term models focus on the underlying mechanism driving future wealth distribution, an artificial intelligence capability threshold. Nearly a century ago, the economist John Maynard Keynes wondered what would happen when the problem of economic scarcity was solved, warning that humans might be deprived of their traditional purpose. We have long assumed that human labor guarantees both economic security and personal meaning. Researchers term the impending shift the economic alignment problem. Generative AI models are moving toward a point where economic productivity decouples from human labor inputs. This graph plots the doubling times of AI metrics. The time it takes for these systems to advance is shrinking rapidly, charting an exponential curve that threatens to automate existing sectors without creating enough new roles to replace them. A highly automated economy forces extreme policy interventions. If capital is generated primarily by non-human systems, concepts like a rent-funded universal basic income transition from fringe ideas to strict mathematical necessities for financing the populace. The 2050 labor crisis extends far past job protection. It presents an existential challenge that demands an entirely new framework for how human beings secure their survival and define their societal value. Many Americans foresee a sudden global energy shortage. The data, however, points to a deliberate trajectory, an all-of-society transition toward net-zero greenhouse gas emissions. Achieving this target demands an immediate, massive infrastructural overhaul over the next 2 decades. This requires rebuilding electrical grids, electrifying transportation, and initiating sweeping efficiency retrofits across millions of public and private buildings. This domestic physical transition is directly linked to the geopolitical anxiety surrounding a rising China. Global influence by mid-century relies on controlling the actual supply chains for zero-carbon fuels, advanced batteries, and next-generation electrical components. Falling behind in the deployment of these technologies carries severe macroeconomic consequences. Losing control of the next century's energy architecture threatens the ultimate American safety net. the position of the US dollar as the dominant global currency. The actual geopolitical risk to the United States is not a sudden military conquest. It is the distinct possibility of being systematically outbuilt in the race to construct the defining infrastructure of the 21st century. The pessimism accorded in the Pew surveys is ultimately justified, even if the specifics are misplaced. The public senses correctly that the legacy systems they rely on are fracturing. The demographic inversion, the AI threshold, and the climate transition timeline are not hypothetical scenarios. They are locked-in trajectories, all colliding by mid-century. Attempting to protect policies designed for an analog economy against these forces is a mathematical impossibility. The equations simply do not balance. This makes the year 2050 a highly specific target. It is not a scheduled apocalypse, but a hard, unforgiving deadline for structural transition. Yet within that rigid timeline, the United States retains immense pragmatic agency. There is still time and capital available to design and build entirely new frameworks to match this reality. The enduring truth of 2050 is a matter of adaptation. America must deliberately reinvent its economic and social foundations, or it will fall victim to its own obsolescence.